Okay.
Okay, now you've got Claudia.
That's pleasant.
Yes, now I think we can maybe turn the phone off, but wait first. Go to panelists.
Where's that at?
At the bottom.
Participants?
Participants, yes, I'm sorry, wrong keyword.
Okay. Okay.
And then over on that sidebar that opens up, there should be another little tab that you can click on that says like attendees.
Yes. Jennifer? Yes.
And then I should be there.
Yes.
Click on me. And there should be a thing that is a button that says like
Ask to unmute.
What?
Says,
Ask to unmute.
yeah. Or more. More?
You need to more, yeah.
Okay. Promote to panelist.
Yes.
Promote to panelist? Yes. Okay.
And then you need to toggle back over to panelist.
Okay.
And make me a co-host.
Okay. Yes. On the more thing?
Yeah.
Make a co-host.
Yes.
Do you want Jennifer to be a co-host? Yes.
I assume yes.
Yes. Okay. Then what? There was something on the thing that was supposed to be more at the bottom with those dots, but I did it okay, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't have to do anything.
Yeah. Okay, the share screen's up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there used to be a thing where it didn't automatically allow us to.
Yeah. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you through both.
Through both, okay.
And I'm gonna unmute, and then I'm gonna hang up.
Hang up on the phone?
Yes, I hung up on the phone.
Oh, okay. Okay, so now what?
I mean, that's all. What do you?
Oh, it's recording now. Should I just leave it?
I mean, you can do whatever you want. Do you want to pause it, or do you want to? I'll write myself a note here that says to.
Do I
start
just
it back up again?
click on it to pause it?
Yeah, you can do that.
Still recording. Oh, just stop recording? Is that what it says?
There's a pause. Yeah, but there should be a pause option.
That accelerates the getting to know you process.
Yeah. When you can only hang out with like two people.
They don't wait around. I met my wife in September of '87, proposed by November, married the next in June of '88.
Oh, really?
We
Yeah.
didn't know each other. We didn't know each other the whole year.
Well, I'm no young chicken anymore either, so.
Oh, for God's sake. How old do you think?
That was just a statement to cause pain to the rest of us.
I think I'm like the last of like my friends to get married, so.
You should learn from all of their mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is one of my good buddies texted me today. He goes, Dave, someone gave me some really good advice, and I'm going to give it to you. Take this time during the engagement to do anything and everything you want, because after the engagement, it goes downhill from there.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, no.
So Dave, Jim's gonna be the last one standing. Pretty much, I'll have to tease him.
Yeah, you know, Jim and Ma, they need to just buck up and do it.
Exactly.
Well, I think we have everyone here, yes?
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
So let's call this meeting to order. And We'll begin tonight with reviewing the regular agenda, which is huge. Does anybody have anything they want to comment on or ask? If not, we'll go around and do our meeting updates. And I'm just going to go by who I see on the screen. And I'm going to start with David.
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
Emerson,
Nothing to report.
Laura,
Sustainability met yesterday to start planning for their goals for 2021. Lots of really good discussion, but no firm goals yet. So I think probably there's a little work to do there, and there's a pretty wide range of alternatives on the table. So I think I'll just wait until they make some decisions, and then I'll report those back to you.
great. Thank you. Karen,
I have nothing to report.
Sarah, you're muted.
No, I was just getting to unmute. I don't have anything official. I went to the event this weekend in Old Webster on Saturday when it was rainy, and was happy to see that even with the rain, there were people out, which was kind of exciting. That's all I. That's all I
Good
have.
for you. Pam,
Nothing, except I did attend the Old Webster Trade Association meeting this morning.
good. Neil, anything from you?
Nothing to report.
No. Joanne?
Since it was mentioned about the meeting this morning, I was curious about some of the discussion because Fran had asked me for some details, and I was hoping that it was shared that the advertising started on KMOV for the holiday ads yesterday. And I'm really excited about that. I think several people have seen it and have been pleased with what they saw. And then also on KEZK, the radio ad is also, that started yesterday as well.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Okay. That ad is incredible. It's really phenomenal. You guys did a great job with that. Katie, do you have anything?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. I don't have much either. The Arts Commission met. They're going to start working on an arts walk. There's a holiday item that I'll share with you later. And we're all waiting for Earth Rabbit to appear. I wanted to ask, have any of you seen the documentary on Reynard Nebbit?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you haven't, I'm gonna forward the link to you later tonight. It's still free, and it's a pretty incredible piece. I think they did a great job about him. So I think it's worth seeing that. So I will send that off. All right, and with that, we are going to go ahead to our topic, and I'm going to let Joanne start on this because you've taken the lead, and you and Dale, and we have some other things to share with you. So go ahead, Joanne, you're on.
Okay. So I know that at the last meeting, I think it was just the committee meeting, not the total city council, I had mentioned that we were still waiting for the company that we're working with called Beloved Communities to get started on the equity audit. I have to say that we heard from them now a couple of times. We're working on setting up each department to work with them to do their own equity audit. Separate from that, I would also like to do for the mayor and the city council to do an equity audit of your area as well. And so we will get that set up for you if you would like to do that. I think, to me, it's very important that we all are engaged in this together. And so it would be a great opportunity. What I'm going to do in the next couple of days is send a video to you that shows how to prepare for this. I will also send you slides for backup. And then in addition to that, I will set up a meeting, a virtual meeting for you to have with our contacts there at Beloved Communities so that you can understand exactly the procedure and see if this really is something that you're interested in. But I believe that this would be a great start for all of us to work together on this. And then we also intend to work with the department directors and Dale's here right now, and I believe Mara is too, but we will chat about this a little bit at our staff meeting tomorrow, and then separately with each of the departments to get started on this very soon. Separate from that, we're doing a few things internally to try to continue to expand and work more diligently on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we have a few vacancies and positions right now. And so we're looking at not only recruiting in different ways than we had in the past, but also in the way in which we select candidates. We're not focusing necessarily on, well, we're definitely focusing on skill sets and all of that, but we're trying to make sure that we look at a variety of candidates, not just from a certain field or a certain area that we typically do. We're trying to advertise, for example, in a variety of locations to make sure that we get a diverse pool of candidates so that we don't get just females or we don't get just white individuals. And I also wanted to bring up, and I know you saw that in the email, that Sergeant McCoy just got or will be promoted soon. And I'm really excited about that because I think she's our first female sergeant. Is that the first female sergeant that we've had now since you've been here, Dale? Or, I mean, in our tenure in Webster, or I don't remember exactly.
No, she'll be the second.
Second, okay. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm also excited about the opportunities that we're providing and what we mentioned previously about the process for police officer where, and I'm just forgetting my word now. Dale, cover me on this. Where's academy? We're looking to send them to the academy. I'm so sorry. Sometimes I forget my word and then it drives me nutty. What I'd also like is for Dale to talk about the training that he's been working on for a number of years, but I think specifically now I'd like him to talk about it so that there's more understanding about how he focuses on the various parts to the police department and his particular staff in their training.
Joanne, before Dale starts, may I ask a couple of questions about
Yes, please.
what you reported? So when you, and thank you, I appreciate the work you're doing. And when you said you're recruiting in different ways or advertising in different places, could you just give us a little more information about what that looks like?
So in the past, for certain positions, we would focus on, and I don't have the particular items in front of me right now, but for example, we would just do St. Louis Post-Dispatch and maybe certain other areas. But now we look and find areas in which we know that non-whites sometimes look at. So, or if there's a particular newspaper or newsletter or location like that, we're advertising in those spots that we never did before.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any specific paper you're advertising in?
See, I don't remember. I didn't write down those details, and I have another staff member who actually takes care of all of this for me. So I apologize that I didn't write those down before the meeting tonight, but I can provide those to you in the future.
I guess
Thank
it
you.
just makes sense for the American to be
Right.
one of those.
And Joanne, has anyone reached out to you from the Alliance for Interracial Dignity? I know Farrell talked to me about a gentleman that was wanting to meet with Chief Curtis or Webster that has to do with that could help with recruiting diverse candidates for potentially for the police department. And they were going to reach out. I don't know if they have yet or not, or if you are. Laura, are you aware of any of that?
But that it came up at the last Alliance meeting, and there were some groups, and there was a gentleman who said he would be happy to help the police department extend a wider net next time they did a search. I do believe that Detective Sergeant Bell, Dale, I don't want to title him. Remind me what the right one is.
Detective Bell.
Detective Bell had said he was going to get in touch with them. So I don't know where that stands, but it seems like they were going to be connected in a way that might facilitate that.
I'm not sure if Fred was able to speak with him or not, but I can tell you, and this is not unusual, we've done it in our past practices, and that is we have sent to the American online, we sent it to Harris Stowe, their career development offices, we sent it to Lincoln University. We've been to the recruitment in North County, Fred has. So we advertise extensively in those communities. Again, it's just very difficult. It's not a profession that a lot of minorities seek to get into. And we're in competition with 60 other municipalities, including St. Louis County and St. Louis City, which have a lot more opportunities than we do. So it's difficult, but we're making the effort. I mean, we're hopeful. That's why we've left open the possibility of sending someone to the academy. If we can get a good candidate, minority candidate, even if they're not post-certified, we will sponsor them through the academy.
Thank you. Okay, Joanne, are you going to hand this over to Dale?
Yes.
Okay. So Dale, unless Laura has any more questions.
Thanks for, no, I'm sure I'll have more questions along the way, but not right now. Thanks.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll have answers for you. When Joanne asked me to do the training, I tried to put something together, and I'm trying to do it brief. I'm trying to cover almost 1,000 hours of training, and we've kind of been over this a little bit. So I'm kind of trying to give you some snapshots. I'll need to share my screen, but if I'm going too fast or you have questions, please stop me and ask the questions. But I'm gonna try and get it done in about 15 minutes. So I think I can do that. So in any case, I'm gonna try and give you an overview of what we're looking for the basic recruits, what our training involved, especially in terms of the implicit bias, racial profiling, and the de-escalation, which are, I think, extremely important in today's environment. So that's where I'm headed. Again, if I'm going too fast, I'm trying to be brief with them, but if I'm going too fast, slow me down or ask questions, and I'll be glad to do that. So I'm trying to share my screen here. Okay, to begin, every one of our officers has to be certified by the state, and to do that, they have to go through a certified police academy. Most of our officers have been through the St. Louis Municipal Police Academy. There are a few other academies throughout the state. Whenever we send someone to the academy, that's where we go. We go to the St. Louis County Municipal Academy. It's also the vendor that we use for most of our in-class training. I'd say about 75% of our training, I think I mentioned this before, is at the St. Louis County Municipal Academy. The initial basic training block for recruits is about 1,000 hours. They do legal studies, 95 hours. Cultural diversity and interpersonal perspectives are 80 hours. The technical studies, 373, and the skill development are 308 hours. Normally, what you would see on this, I think we've been over this, our training since this past July. What you would normally see is a lot from the St. Louis County Academy, but since the pandemic, we've had to do a lot of our training online. We chose Police One as our vendor. We felt that they were best suited to meet our needs for online training. I wanted to focus on the anti-bias and the racial profiling and data collection training, and also on our de-escalation. Since July, we've had 132 hours of training in implicit bias and racial profiling, 108 hours in de-escalation training. Also in disadvantaged or minority communities, we've had significant training responding to the LGBTQ and also the youth and LGBTQ. One of the important things for us, and for those of you that when we're talking to Dr. Peoples at the meet and greet, is to have 100% of our officers trained in CIT, which is crisis intervention training. That training is to try and attempt to deal with individuals outside the criminal justice system, people who have mental health issues, emotional issues, in crisis issues, a number of different things, and the officers learn how to deal with those and refer them to social service agencies, mental health professionals, and different services outside of try to deal with it outside of criminal justice. We think that's an important part of our job and our business, and we try to treat people to get effective solutions to problems without having to use the criminal justice system to do that. The CIT program has 40 hours. It's a 1-week training. It covers a number of topics: behavioral symptoms, medications, intervention with children and teenagers, developmental disorders, medical conditions. There's also a cultural diversity component where they address the impact of culture and ethnicity on itself. It also focuses on a general mental health profile for ethnic cultures, sexual minorities, and religious groups. Substance abuse, suicide intervention, assessing needs for treatment, community resources. They have a 4-hour tactical block, and that is mainly de-escalation techniques. That's above and beyond what we've gotten outside of that, where they focus on communication strategies and techniques for de-escalating crisis. They have a number of role playing and different aspects in the conclusion of it. We try to get in-class training for implicit bias. One of the vendors that we've used is Anti-Defamation League. They have a good courses and good programs on managing implicit bias. Unfortunately, again, this year we haven't had any in-class training because it's not being offered because of the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, we wanted to try and get all of our supervisors to the procedural justice course. It's an 8-hour course on fundamentals of procedural justice. How to increase the amount of voice that citizens have during transactions with us, how to increase perceptions of fairness in decision-making, and how to maintain an individual's sense of dignity and avoid violent encounters. I think we were able to get 4 supervisors through before everything was kind of shut down because of the pandemic. Wanted to show you a video. This is Police One. Again, this is our online vendor. This is not a course itself, but it kind of gives you an idea, a snapshot of a philosophy and where the courses are directed. And what the officers are kind of seeing, so that you see it's kind of a professional environment. It's not something that's slapped together or something that's not based upon something that's not on best practices or scientific data. So yeah, this is a quick video. I will probably cut it off in interest of time, but it'll give you kind of an idea, hopefully if this works, of what some of the course content is, and especially some of the lectures in the course content.
Doug Wiley with Police One. I'm here with Danny Rosa. Danny, one of the things that's really huge in the headlines right now is implicit bias. Ignoring implicit bias is the problem, right?
Absolutely. The really interesting stuff is that we looked at all the cognitive scientists and the behavioral psychologists and what their findings are. And here's the gist of it. There's 2 ways we think and make decisions. There's 2 systems in the brain. Now, we're not getting all that physiological effects of life-threatening stress and what parts of the brain work. They really make it simple. And they talk about 2 systems, system 1, system 2. System 1 is first and is quick, intuitive, emotional. System 2 is second and is analytical, rational. And the way Daniel Kahneman explains it really well, system 1, system 2. And then Jonathan Haidt came along and used this analogy of an elephant and a rider. And he describes the unconscious brain, system 1, the quick, intuitive brain, as this big, strong elephant. And the cognitive, analytical, rational brain as a little rider sitting on top of that big, strong elephant, like who's really in charge. But what's interesting is what they discovered, that unless you're really up on this and you really study it and then you kind of train and affect it regarding training, that everyone thinks there's 2 ways we make decisions. One that coincides with system 1, the quick, intuitive one. You're driving down the street and you got to miss a deer. You got to react quickly. And then system 2, am I going to take this job and I'm going to marry this person am I going to buy this house? And what they determined with tons and tons of experiments and studies is that about 95% of all our decisions are the quick intuitive ones, are the elephant. And then even when we have time, like, am I going to buy this house? If our gut was we don't want to, we're going to be finding the cracks in the foundations. We're going to find problems with the neighborhood. And that's the way we work. So if you think about it, there's some of the most important decisions police officers make are the quick intuitive ones, like deadly force decisions, use of force decisions. And we need to train the elephant. We need to train the deep belief, visceral, emotional elephant to respond properly. And the other thing that this evidence, what we're learning from these scientists and psychologists, is that what we've always felt, sound tactics tend to slow time down so the elephant can dial up the rider and, you know, make better decisions. And a perfect example of that is like a felony.
Okay, as I said, I'm going to try and, for the sake of time, not run those too long, but I think it kind of gives you a snapshot idea of some of the content of the online and where it heads in terms of implicit bias. Second thing that's been really important to us, and certainly to police environment and the community in general, is de-escalation. The core of it, again, in the Police One training, the online training that we've been able to get, is that it's not just words, it's an integrated response. You have to achieve contact, you cannot de-escalate. And de-escalation begins with you. You have to respond rationally and professionally. You have to prevent yourself from losing mental control. You have to focus on the outcome, not the cause. Expend energy and resources on resolving the situation at hand. And then finally, police officers can do everything right and things can still go wrong. We train for and try to make sure that we get the most positive, successful outcome at every incident. But sometimes, regardless of how much training you have and how well you do, unfortunately, things can go wrong. We have to keep that in mind. Again, this is a snapshot of kind of what the content or philosophy is in the Police One training. Very similar to some of the lectures and things you see in there. Again, I'm going to probably start this in about the middle of this video just to give you a brief snapshot of the kind of things that they talk about in de-escalation.
Greetings and welcome back to the Shift Briefing Series. I'm David Pearson.
Try and move him up.
The next thing that I want to talk about is the de-escalation of oneself. This is a very important concept to me because both personally and professionally, I've paid for my inability to de-escalate myself in one way or the other. And I was out in New Hampshire, I was talking to some guys and they were talking about, man, I hope you talk about this because we know several guys that once they get amped up, they never can come down. And so they know people, I know people, I used to be one of those people. Hopefully I've learned a little bit. So learning how to de-escalate oneself is important. One of the first steps that I found helpful is figuring out what my trigger is. What's setting me off that starts me up that ramp that I can't come down? And I know it now because I've thought about it, I've done a lot of self-reflection. I can feel myself doing that. So I know that I have to take some immediate action. The last thing that I want to talk about is this concept of energy. And the reason it's important is because it allows us to either handle stressful events or it doesn't. And so it looks like this. I want you to imagine that you're fully rested, no stress, and you're ready to take on the world. When you get up, you're like, all right, let's go. If you look at your energy at 100% level, I want you to look at that like a 50-gallon drum of water, all right? And then there are days that you go into work and you have no energy at all, like you have no sleep, you've been working a lot of overtime, you're fighting with your significant other or whatever. And sometimes you walk into work with a shot glass of energy. When you're in that mode, when you have that little energy, often there is no buffer between some sort of stimulus and your response. And usually where your response is not very good. I know mine hasn't been. So finding ways, and again, I might try to do a video on energy later, but finding ways of keeping your energy, of not wasting it on, you know, things that you can't fix, politics inside of the office, some sort of conflict that you're having with somebody else. Protect that energy. That energy will give you that buffer between that stimulus and the response. And if you can think about that both in relationships and also out on the street.
Okay, again, I just want to kind of give you a snapshot, an idea of what you're seeing in your online training. What we try to do now, especially since predominantly we do online training, is we follow that up with training with the officers individually and with supervisor on scenarios on our simulator, our Milo. And I wanted to just give you a brief view of that so that they can get as close to practical experience as possible. And then in this session, it's one of our new officers. She's a little bit tentative, but she does a pretty good job on both these scenarios. Again, I asked them to run short scenarios because I didn't want to take up too much time, but it'll give you a good idea. We do the online training, and then we take officers and run them down about half an hour, 45 minutes through 3 or 4 or 5 different scenarios to make sure that they understood what was being said in the online training and that they're able to put into practice the principles and the techniques that are being taught online.
All right, Officer Thompson, we're going to run you through a couple of scenarios here on the simulation training system. Obviously, your belt, you have all your lethal and less lethal items on your belt. You have a taser, mace, and a laser firearm. So basically what I want you to do is I want you to run through these scenarios as you would on the street, utilizing all the stuff you've been taught in training at the academy and then we use here on the job. Remembering your use of force policies, remembering your conduct, your code of ethics policies and everything like that. And let's see how you handle these scenarios, all right? All right. So the first scenario here will give you a little brief of what's going to happen. And so just follow along and interact. I will be, as usual when we do this training, I will be changing the scenario up based on your actions, okay?
Hello, sir. My name is Officer Thompson with Webster Police Department. I pulled you over today because you were speeding, okay? Can I get your license and insurance, please?
What is your problem?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to come off in a rude way or anything like that. I just need your insurance and your identification, please, so we can get you on your way.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Everybody has a bad day, whatever might be okay.
Okay? Well, can I go ahead and get your insurance and ID, please, and then we can get you going?
Why are you asking my license?
Well, I just need your license so I can identify you. I did pull you over because you were speeding, so I just need that. And
Okay, I understand. I got it right here in my pocket.
Perfect. Thank you. Wait 1 second. I will go back to my car and run at this point.
Okay, right, that's standard.
Here's your ID and insurance. I'm just going to give you
Thank
money
you,
today.
thank you, and yes, I will slow down and be careful pulling out. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Okay, good job. So basically what I wanted to do there was, as you're well aware, when we do traffic stops and such, sometimes we have very compliant people. Sometimes we have people who are having a bad day and they give you a little bit of attitude off the bat. Do you remember what you were trained with on how to utilize things that a driver is saying to you to turn it back on them and make them comply? Do you remember what that was called?
I mean, when I just speaking to them?
Right, just speaking to them.
I mean, generally we just call it verbal judo when we talk to them.
Very good, very good. It's like you take their bone that they're giving you and you throw it back on them, and then that kind of changes the thing. And so I thought you did that pretty nicely, and that's why I changed the scenario up. As soon as like he gave you a bad attitude, you kind of explained it again and said, you know, hey, I didn't mean to come off, you know, offensive or whatever you said there, and then throw throw it back to him, and then he changed up. He's like, I get it. Everybody has a bad day, right? And then you explained him again. I kind of threw you another one when I had, what do you need my license for? Because a lot of times, remember when a driver is stopped, they're nervous, they're scared, because most of the time in contact with law enforcement, you know, in a traffic stop like that, they know they've done something wrong, so they get offensive and that kind of stuff. But then once we can explain that out to them, you know, it usually goes, majority of the time it goes in our favor, and they comply, and then they just give your driver's license and that. So the standard traffic stop there, but I just wanted to see how you utilized your verbal judo and how you talk to the driver and that. So I could have had it go really bad for you, but I didn't. So good job on that. All right, let's go to another one here. This one here, I'll give you the brief on it because the scenario does not give a summary of the scenario that starts. This is a suicidal woman with a knife. Okay? Suicidal woman with a knife. All right, so ready?
Mm-hmm. So at this point, I would probably call for backup, and I would be non-lethal, they would be lethal, so I would have my taser. All right, ma'am, well, just calm down. I understand you're going through a hard time. It's a rough day. Everybody has bad days.
What are you gonna do with the knife?
Okay, ma'am, please, you gotta put the knife down. You gotta put the knife down, otherwise, I don't want you to hurt yourself, okay? Ma'am, okay. Okay, just take a deep breath, okay? We just want to get you help. We want to see what you do. We want to get you help. We want to... Ma'am, calm down. Just take a deep breath, okay? We're here to help you. Okay. So at this point, I would take the knife, I'd get it away from her, and I would either, if she's going to be compliant, then I'll just talk to her, calm her down, get an ambulance coming, and if she ends up fighting me or in some way, we'd have to handcuff her and go that way.
Okay. So talk to me about when I know it's a short and sweet one, and it's always difficult to speak to a computer who doesn't speak back.
Yeah.
Okay? That's difficult, but talk me through why would you call for a backup? But tell me what was the less lethal thing you did? What was that?
So less lethal, I was only, when I on scene, she looked like she only wanted to hurt herself, not really anyone else. So at that point, she's not technically a threat to me or anyone else, but besides herself. Okay. So I wanted to go non-lethal because if she's not going to attack me and I can get that knife away from her so she stops hurting herself, that's the best option. However, she does have a knife, so if my partner is lethal and I get close to her, she ends up trying to charge us or stab us with that knife, he would have to take lethal means in order to stop her.
Okay, good.
I'm going to, again, in the interest of time to stop it, but I think it gives you a good idea of the backup training that we do to as close as possible to create an environment where the officers are practicing what they learn on the online training or in the in-class training, so that we get a good idea of how they're learning and what they learn, and make sure that they know what our policies are, how to follow the policies. I'm not sure if you followed that, but what she was talking about is if you have a suicidal subject or just somebody even with an edged instrument or something that's dangerous, what we try and do is wait for the backup. One will have a non-lethal, which would be the taser, and one would have a lethal, which would be a weapon. That we don't want to use the weapon. The only reason the person that has the weapon there is in case they are charged or they do try and come at you real quickly with a knife. Otherwise, they would use the taser to disable that subject. So that's what she was talking about there, and that's what they were talking about in terms of the policy. So anyhow, I gave you a quick overview on the training. Like I said, it went fairly fast, but hopefully you get a general idea of how we train, what we're doing. Again, we're using best practices, doing everything that we can to make sure that we are operating with the knowledge of keeping the community safe, but also doing what we can to make sure that we operate without unnecessary use of force or with implicit bias, and use the de-escalation techniques. If you got any questions, I certainly can answer them or try to.
Let's see if anyone has a question, Dale. This was extremely interesting and really valuable. Emerson, you have a question?
I just want to ask, Chief, I guess in your training, do you guys ever partner with other municipalities to compare your training or see what their best practices are? I mean, our surroundings like Rock Hill, Maplewood, Shrewsbury, those apartments, even the city of St. Louis, to see if your training can be improved or can be added upon?
We do that. We do joint training in a number of areas. I can't say that we do it in every area. But for instance, MACTEC training, which is St. Louis County, does not involve St. Louis City. They do not participate. But St. Louis County, all the municipalities and St. Louis County has MACTEC training, which is first responder training to an active shooter incident. Every officer in every department trains together so that if we need to call upon them for assistance, or you have a bunch of officers at a place where there's an active shooter or a possible active shooter, that they all react the same way. They know what an officer is going to do, what they should do, how to do it, and to operate as a team. We also, when we do the academy, we train with other officers from other departments up there in different scenarios. So we do interagency training, especially with those departments that are close to us on our ECDC channel. We frequently, cooperate and coordinate with them in terms of the training and also with the policies and procedures. Every agency except Olivet is now CLIA accredited, and Olivet's accredited by the Missouri Police Chiefs Association.
Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Any other questions? I think this was interesting, Dale. I'd like to do the de-escalation training myself. And so if there's a way to get, I wrote that YouTube down because I think it applies to all of us, not only to the police officers. So this was really valuable. I really appreciate the time you took to put this together. Any other questions?
I can't get you, unfortunately, on the Police One online training thing, but I can get you like the basis of a core, and anybody's welcome. Just arrange that we can go down and use a simulator on any of those kind of things just so you can get a feel of how it actually happens.
I think that would be good.
So Mayor,
anyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
I first of all want to thank Dale because I did think that was very informative, and thank Joanne for her update. But I think I was one of the people who asked to put this on the agenda. And what we've done a couple of times is put this on the agenda and then hear a couple of things from staff that are very important. I don't want to diminish their importance, but we as a council haven't spent any time yet talking about some of the other things that have come forward from residents, maybe from others of us who might have ideas. And I know that we're running out of time again here this time. And so I guess I'd just like to say, there's some things I think some of us would like to work on in addition to this. In fact, Dale mentioned the Anti-Defamation League. I had a great conversation with Karen Oresti over there about a public education program we could do but to help understand some of the incidents this summer, the tagging, the banner from the bridge and so forth. And so I just want to make my preference known that I'd like to make some room at some point for us to have a discussion rather than just hearing from our very capable staff.
Well, and we had planned to include a couple of items too. And you're right, we're running a little bit late, but I think we can spend some time doing that because I wanted to talk a little bit about pulling resources together for a website, a page, or some other platform that we can use. We've talked about that there are many resources in the community and even things that you might find from other organizations. If there were a way to do that for the community, I think that would be very, very useful. And I was hoping we would spend some time talking about whether or not we wanted to begin the process of looking at an equity commission. So yes, we do need to have that kind of discussion. So if there's something you want to throw out now that we need to consider looking at, making room for, let's use some time for that now.
Well, I'll start. I believe that and it may be a natural outgrowth of what Joanne is talking about in terms of our beloved communities, but we have to get back to the notion of scheduling some training for ourselves as a council. That got put on hold in the fall, in part because there was so much demand for the professionals who do that. And we will have a new city manager in place. And I hope that she'll I expect she'll participate in that with us, but that's certainly one thing that I think needs to be on the table. I do think this educational partnership with the Anti-Defamation League, the police departments worked with them, the school districts also worked with them to good results. I would also put out there that we as a council, I absolutely should be doing this equity audit. Joanne sort of put it out as a question. My answer to that question is yes. And then the last one on my list is for us to think about how do we get our boards and commissions to think more about equity and an equity lens in the work they do, because so many of the recommendations they make to us can be better informed by having them understand that this is part of what we expect of them.
I think I was assuming that some of this would also come out of that conversation with our equity audit folks too. I don't know, is there anyone on council that would oppose that? So that we can just go ahead and get started and get that conversation with beloved communities going. Yes, Emerson?
I mean, I don't oppose it. I welcome it. But I know that David had mentioned it several times, and I've mentioned it several times. I think we ought to put on the table of hiring somebody to put on staff to lead this journey for us. And I think that's one thing that will assist us in moving in all in one direction. Thinking that the city council or a small commission of the council or group that we can lead this, I think that's way above what our expertise would yield. So I recommend we put on the table to making this a full-time position for some individual to lead the city in our journey.
I would encourage you to maybe think about that as more of a group of cities doing it together as opposed to just the city of Webster Groves, because this position, I understand the Webster Groves School District doing it or Webster University doing it and having a position full-time for this, but I honestly don't think the person would have a full-time position. I would encourage you to wait until Dr. Peoples comes. I mean, I understand that she has leadership in this area and she might be a better person to lead forward. And if you want the position and she's agreeable with that, you could work with her on that once she arrives. But
I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, not that we're going to go out next week and hire somebody, but I think it needs to be on our radar because the budget season is coming up. We're going to start preparing the budget and we need to make sure that person is there. And, you know, if we don't put the resources behind our what we believe in, it's not going to happen.
Well, and I just want to add, I agree completely. I think we should be looking at that, but we are a entity that has a $25 million budget, and it seems absurd to me that this is not a more is not an line item on our budget in regards to equity, diversity, and inclusion specifically. And so, despite everything that the city is doing individually, having a collective person or a collective group directed, I think, would be extremely important, especially due to the size and budget of our entity. I think there's a whole lot of things, and I'm going to take this moment just to add a few things that I have not necessarily said, but I've heard discussed, or that I didn't come up with, but that I've heard discussed throughout our discussions on this, but like renaming streets that are named after slaveholders here in Webster Groves would be a wonderful idea. Pam and Laura came up with a wonderful diversity and inclusion statement that is now on our website, somehow incorporating that in a more direct format in our city hall. I think there's a whole host of things, and I definitely think that we need to have more of a conversation as city council moving forward on this.
Okay. I have a few things just kind of related, going back over things. I do think things like the boards and commissions, I think we can start talking to people about messaging and projects that are more inclusive. I mean, I think about the library board as being a great example that could be promoting more inclusive activities, HPC, sustainability. So I think we can start talking about that as a theme, or, you know, an effort that's going to take a few years to get going. And I think, you know, from that, if we feel like the Equity Commission, you know, comes out of that, I think that would be a better way to kick off the Equity Commission, actually, if there's been some efforts going on, along with the EDI statement about posting it a little more prominently. I know from the community conversations that there's been some suggested edits that maybe we could consider doing that, looking at those edits before we post them anywhere, renaming streets. And I also think we could start acknowledging efforts from the Black community of landmarks in town that are results of labor, Black labor, slave labor, and have more inclusive stories about those. And I know that's in the North Webster books and things, but I think as a city, we could start acknowledging that at the same time of looking at the slave owners and changing those names.
I also just wanted to add that Joanne talked about the change in potential changes in like how we're approaching hiring and everything. I think we as city council should look at our hiring practices and the policies that are behind it, and direct staff on ways to include diversity and inclusion and equity policies and principles within our hiring policies. And it's something that I don't think that we as city council have had any input in quite a long time. And I think it would be helpful for us to understand that a little bit more fully and see if there is any opportunity there.
And also like to see us focus on how we as a council kind of, I don't want to say, I'm trying to think of the right word here, but that we position ourselves better to recruit diverse candidates in the future. I think we're a nice mix of folks right now, but I don't want that to be an anomaly. I'd like to see us try to figure out what it is that prevents folks from all parts of town and walks of life from being interested in this type of a role. And, you know, I'm sure many of us can share personal experience about what was our barrier there. And I'd like to see us maybe try to tackle some of that. And some of that may be related to pay, because it's not an easy thing to find childcare for the amount of money that council pays per meeting. And that's a real issue for a lot of folks in the city. So I think there's some impact we could have on the future of the council if we were to revisit some of what makes us council today.
And just one more thing that I thought of while we were talking about the commissions. I do think the business districts, we could start looking at minority-owned businesses somehow, attracting new businesses or having other events. So that's it.
Well, we have a good list here. We'll figure out what to do with this list. I think once we talk with the beloved communities folks and we see what they're about, where they're leading us, we can begin to pull these things either in or out with that. I'm just not sure how to proceed, but we certainly have a really good list here to begin to work on. Karen?
Jerry, so would part of this process that we're talking about now include making sure that we have the anti-bias or training for our staff as well, for the city council staff? I think we had talked about that before. I just don't want to just assume that that's something that's going to be included in this, but I just don't want us to lose sight of that.
Great. Yeah, I presume that's part of the training that Laura is talking about, that we as council need.
And I mean, not only council, but city staff, administration.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So Mayor, I just wanted to follow up. I just want to clarify what you said last in regards to waiting for Beloved. We're still going to proceed concurrently with Beloved. We're not waiting for the audit to be complete before we move on some of these
No,
items. of discussion.
no.
Well,
We're just, I'm just not sure what they are going to cover.
Yeah.
Yes.
On that note, may I begin discussions with the Anti-Defamation League to understand a little better about what these kind of community education pieces that they're interested in helping us with might look like, and then bring back to you a more formal proposal?
And bring us some communities that this has been done in so that we understand not only what they're doing, but where they've done this.
And I'm not sure that they've done very many of them to this point. But, you know, this is what they do in the world is identify and combat and educate about white supremacy. But yeah, I'll see what she can tell
See
me
what
about
they
that
have.
as well.
Great. That'd be good. Anybody else? All right, this is not forgotten. We will come forward at the next meeting and see where we are with an update with all of this. Thank you. Thank you very much for all of this. All right, we're going to leave this work session then and go on to our regular meeting tonight. And I think we can just go ahead and move ahead. And I'm going to go ahead and call the regular meeting to order. Again, remind people that if you want your comments to be read into the record, that we need to receive them by 4 o'clock on the day of the meeting. But if you want to speak tonight, you need to raise your hand, which is associated with the attendees. You're on as an attendee. Next to your name is something you can hit and your hand will go up and we will call on you. And you may have 3 minutes. So we'll start with the roll call. Katie?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Welch?
Here.
Councilmember Arnold?
Here.
Councilmember Bliss?
Here.
Councilmember Franklin?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Emerson, are you here?
Here, can you hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Oh, okay.
Councilmember Alexander?
Here.
Councilmember Richardson?
Here.
All right, our first agenda item tonight is the continuation of a public hearing that we have had many evenings with, and this is on a zoning code text amendment for parking development standards. Proposed amendments include changes and additions to sections 53.020, 047, 057, 067, 077, 117, 157, 180 through 189, 233, and 243 of the zoning ordinance in order to clarify and update regulations for parking development standards in residential, commercial, industrial, and multiple family districts. And Mara, I think you're here to tell us you've made some changes, and if we assume that they're acceptable, we might actually be able to call this hearing to an end.
Yes, most definitely. So in your packets, you did have red line changes, as well as a clean copy. I do have PowerPoint slides if someone needs clarification or wants me to walk through what the red line changes are. I know a couple council members had asked some clarifications prior to the meeting just to understand it. So I'm at the pleasure of the council if you would like me to go through the slides or if you would prefer to just ask questions about the red lines.
I don't know, does council need us to go through the slides?
I don't.
Or you just want to, no, I don't see anyone who is. So let's just see what sort of questions that people have. Perhaps someone who's phoned you and talked to you about this could bring up their questions or concerns.
I just had a question about one of the red lines, if that's okay.
Yes, that's good. Thank you, Karen.
On page 6, item 6C, this is Romanet 4, driveway materials. It says the use of pervious materials and designs are encouraged. A solid surface will be required for the location of the tires of the vehicle. designs must meet all other city codes. I'm not real clear. So I get, okay, I like the pervious materials and designs are encouraged. I'm not clear on what a solid surface will be required for the location of the tires of the vehicle, because when I see solid surface, I'm thinking asphalt or concrete. Can you just kind of clarify that for me? If we're looking at pervious materials and designs, except where the tires hit the surface?
So solid surface can include everything from engineered gravel. It can include pervious pavement. It can include pervious pavers. It can include grass pavers. So there's a whole series of things that just provide some stability because the tires themselves are where the weight is. So if you have just grass or soil there, it doesn't necessarily provide the surface for the tires. And so in some of the previous slides I'd shown you, it showed like the ribbon driveways or the Hollywood driveways. So just those tracks that the tires drive on would have to be those surfaces. Sorry, my phone is ringing and I can't. Sorry, that was Katie calling me. So yes, just those solid, just the two tracks would have to be of those particular materials. That would allow the rest of it to go to any sort of type of grass surface or stay as grass surface, which
Mara,
is why we clarified it.
Mara, I'm sorry, but Katie probably needs help. She's not on the computer anymore.
Oh, okay.
I'll look at it too. Hang on.
Do you want me to keep answering questions or should I walk up?
No, I think we need to wait for Katie because she really needs to.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me go walk upstairs.
I like the combination of put on the mask and take off the glasses in sort of one fluid motion.
Looks like there she is. Yep.
Katie, you're muted if you didn't know.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, we had some kind of malfunction.
Okay.
We had to start.
Thanks, Mara, for fixing
my
it.
exercise for the night.
Appreciate that.
So sorry, Karen, did that answer your question?
Okay, so basically those two sentences really have nothing to do with each other, right? So if we were having to discuss the solid surfaces for the tires, that wouldn't be in a situation where we basically have the pervious materials or designs or what have you. That's only going to come into play if we had that ribbon driveway situation where part of the driveway is dirt or grass.
Well, pervious could also allow them to, someone could do a solid or surface full driveway with pervious pavers. With there's also pavers that have grass in them where there is still a solid surface, enough of a surface with grass in between. And then there's also pervious pavement. So there are still things that we can encourage in terms of pervious nature but we just still want to say we can encourage the whole thing to be pervious, but at some point, a certain section of it has to remain as that solid surface to hold the vehicle, to hold the weight of the car.
Okay. Any other questions in here? I'm hoping that everyone's concerns are satisfied by these changes. Thank you for making the driveway narrower. I appreciate that. Anybody else have a question?
I don't have a question, just one comment. I just want to say thanks. Mara found a simpler way to address my problem in this, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Mayor, I do have 2 public comments to read into the record when you have the opportunity.
Okay. Anything else? You're right. Thank you, Mara, for listening to all of us. We really appreciate that. Okay, where are our 2 public comments? Are you reading them, Katie?
Yes, Mayor.
Or Jen? Okay.
The first one is from Dave Buck, and it's dated 11/17/2020. To Mayor, City Council, and City staff. This is a simple parking question out of curiosity. Before COVID, it seemed that everyone was up in arms about the need for more parking in Webster Groves and searching for new ideas and solutions. One such solution was using the Bristol Elementary School blacktop for after hours and evening parking. This seemed like a win-win idea. Then COVID hit, and amazingly, Webster's parking problems seemed to vanish overnight. Judgmentally, because residents were driving less and going out less. But now, even with COVID spiking again, one look along Lockwood and Old Webster and the big restaurant crowds say residents are definitely coming out again. And one of these days, COVID will end and life will go back to normal. Thus, my question is, when it does, will Webster once again have parking problem, and should we be getting prepared for it? Or should we hold tight on parking and let residents walk a little bit more in our walkable community? Peace, Dave. And the second one is from Jackson Hodeling, and it's also dated November 17th, 2020. In my previous 2 letters regarding our parking development standards, I addressed how Webster Groves is a wonderful place to store cars, and that would be wise to join a growing number of cities that are removing parking minimums. After multiple meetings, we are still discussing driveway widths, but avoiding a review of parking minimums altogether. Serendipitously, Strong Towns hosted an excellent webinar today that featured a panel of Edmonton, Alberta, planners and advocates that described why and how they abolished their parking minimums. I will synthesize their rationale in this letter, and I will also share the webinar recording once it becomes available next week. Edmonton is in the province of Alberta, the Texas of Canada. It is conservative and hosts an oil-dominated economy in a wintry climate, and 75% of trips are done by car. It even holds the Guinness World Record for the largest parking lot. Why would it decide to abolish parking minimums, not only in its urban core, but also in its residential areas? In short, they realize that there is a triangle of factors that make up city livability: abundant parking, economical options, and walkability. And they can only choose 2 Edmonton, and thus choosing to take the first step towards an economical, walkable city, because parking is important, though not as an exclusion to everything else. Through several studies and input from the public and businesses, they made 1,800 observations and 340 unique sites and found that only 7% of their lots achieved optimal occupancy. Other indicators suggested businesses was being held back, and the parking minimums themselves seem arbitrarily chosen. The opportunity to abolish parking minimums is a first step for Webster Groves to be more walkable, equitable, sustainable, and open to business. Walking around now, I still see many empty parking lots. The truth is that the pandemic didn't make these parking lots empty. There were empty space before. Please review photos in the appendix to see our empty lots. Let's be creative and fill the empty, wasted space with opportunity. On an unrelated note, I am particularly proud of our City Council's unanimous vote for our new city manager. And it contains appendix and attachments. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any reason to hold this public hearing open? If not, then Neil, go ahead and enter your stuff and we will close this public hearing. Neil, you're muted.
Sorry. The exhibit list is long in this particular matter. There is a document that has been prepared by Mara for this particular document. This is not 9131, right, Mara?
This is 9131. Neil, would you like me to share it on the screen?
Yeah, share it on the screen if you would. So here is your exhibit list, which everyone can see and would be a matter of the public record. I move for the admission of all of the documents that are contained on the exhibit list without reading them individually, including and most importantly, of course, our own zoning code of the city of Webster Groves and the comments that were made this evening, dated, of course, 11/17. There are other letters that have been presented over time, but they are all on the list. They've already been previously presented. So I'd move for the admission of all of these exhibits.
Thank you. And with that, I think we'll declare this public hearing finally over, Mara. So we can now go to Bill number 9131. And Pam, would you call for its approval? Reading the, oh no, the first and second reading, sorry.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the, you mean of Bill 9131?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to call for the first and second reading of Bill 9131.
Second.
First reading of Bill 9131, an ordinance of the city of Webster Groves, Missouri, amending chapter 53 zoning by amending code sections 53.020, 53.047, 53.057, 53.067, 53.077, 53.117, 53.157, 53.180 through 53.189. 53.233 and 53.243 of the zoning ordinance in order to clarify and update regulations for parking development standards in residential, commercial, industrial, and multiple family residences and matters related thereto.
Are there any questions or issues? If not, Neil, you can repeat that with the second reading.
Bill 9131, second reading, an ordinance of the city of Webster Groves, Missouri, amending chapter 53 zoning by amending code sections 53.020, 53.047, 53.057, 53.067, 53.077, 53.117, 53.157, 53.180 through 53.189, 53.233, and 53.243 of the zoning ordinance in order to clarify and update regulations for parking development standards in residential, commercial, industrial, and multiple family residence districts and matters related thereto.
All right, and with that, we will go on to our next item, which is remarks of visitors. And Katie, do we have some?
Yes, Mayor, we have 6 of them. Ready to roll?
Yeah.
The first one is from AJ Anjajala, and it's dated 11/16/2020. As an immediate neighbor on West Kirkham, I wanted to share how extremely displeased my wife and I are about the new development of 8 7-story buildings. We are not in favor of these tall structures, population density, additional traffic. Stress this new development is going to inject into our quiet neighborhood. We don't need the additional 10% of population that our school systems cannot support. While many other developments in Webster Groves are limited to 4 or 5 stories, why should this project get special treatment? We are not in favor of TIP funding towards this project, which would result in increased property taxes and diversion of future tax revenues. The gain for the developer cannot come at the expense of our privacy, quiet enjoyment, air and sound pollution, ruining our picturesque neighborhood. Quiet, low-key, picturesque, quintessential neighborhood. Isn't this the very definition of Webster Groves? Isn't that why people choose to live here? Why are we trying to change that? Who asked for this new development other than one private enterprise's desire to benefit from it? There are over 200 houses sold in the area and less than 200,000 price point in the last 4 to 5 years. As a licensed real estate broker, I am happy to provide that data. The developer's statement of workforce housing is just a PR stunt. Comment number 2 is from Sue Brady, dated 11/16/2020. Dear City Council, I am asking you to reconsider the current plan for the new development near the Shady Creek Preserve. It is much too large for the space that it will be built on. I fear this will impact our school in a detrimental way. There is much more I could say, but I am sure you are hearing it from all directions. I thank you in advance for your consideration to downsizing the project. Comment number 3 is from Steve Braun, dated 11/16/2020. Dear council members, I am writing to express my strong opposition to the SG proposal for Old Webster. The proposed density is unacceptable, is in no way consistent with the character of Webster Groves. The addition of that many people and cars would greatly diminish the quality of life for the surrounding residents. Community assets like Larson Park and Barbary Park, which are already heavily used, would greatly suffer as a result. Some aspects of the proposal, such as building heights of a 7-story plus parapet, are absurd. The lack of a current traffic study to establish a baseline for neighborhood functioning under non-COVID conditions should preclude the City Council from advancing this proposal any further. Thanks for listening to this concerned citizen and Old Webster resident. Comment number 4 is from Beau Rocher. My dear council members, given the size of the proposed development off Kirkham and Gore, how can the added traffic be addressed given the multiple choke points with the train tracks? Several times a day, frequently coinciding with high traffic periods, a train disrupts all traffic crossing Lockwood from Elm to Berry, really Sappington until 2021 due to the closures. During these regular events, adding in tens of additional regular commuters to Rock Hill and Gore would seem to regularly push the existing traffic to the next intersection, inviting cross-traffic issues, further complicating the flow across the city, creating clogging and a rippling set of unintended consequences of the traffic. Funneling all of this traffic through Elm, see familiar issues arise. This would seem to be a problem, and I'd like to know what planning has been done to evaluate the impacts. How many new households will need to cross the tracks for school or work? How can this existing choke points handle the proposed increase in population and corresponding traffic? What disruption and existing traffic will be caused by any required roadway changes, and for how long? How will any such changes be paid for? And Mr. Rocher's comments were made on 11/17/2020. Thank you for your time. The 5th comment is from Jim Haynes, dated 11/17/2020. Reading about the potential monstrosity being planned for the Old Webster district. From what I gathered in the Webster Covered Times, it seems like some local residents made their concerns about the size of this project known to the developers, who then responded back with essentially the same exact plan, no changes. The message seems to be, sorry folks, but the only way we can make enough profit or dollars on this project is by fundamentally changing your neighborhood. Because let's be clear, that is exactly what this massive development will do. This will add thousands of cars to local roads. Traffic lights will certainly need to start going up after this is built. Current businesses that have supported Old Webster for years will likely go under. There's a reason why nothing like this has ever happened in Webster before. But a few people, mainly non-local, stand to make quite a bit of money on this deal, so I expect it will likely move forward regardless of how much residents oppose it. Just never thought I'd see this in Webster Groves. And on to number 6 in 1 second. Our last comment is from Dave Buck, dated 11/17/2020. To Mayor, City Council, SG Collaborative, and Standpoint. First, congratulations to Marie Peoples and City Council on her hiring as Webster's new city manager. And congratulations to Joanne on her great job as interim city manager. Second, regarding the redevelopment project, I believe in keeping a finger on the pulse of the community on major issues by conducting periodic informal research. So yesterday, as a private citizen, I asked 3 simple questions to the 4 major Webster Groves Facebook groups. Their answers are still coming in, but here are the answers of the 52 people who responded within the first 24 hours. Question number 1. Do you have enough awareness and familiarity of this project to have an opinion? Yes, 47, no, 1, don't know yet, 4. Question number 2. If yes, what is your current opinion of the project? Support 24, oppose 23. Question 3. Would you like the opportunity to review and compare at least one additional plan option to the current SG Collaborative plan? Yes, 30, no, 17. This is obviously a very small, informal, and unscientific study, but for me, it does provide some interesting insights. The vast majority of residents are aware of this project and plan SG Collaborative has presented. Residents currently seem split right down the middle on supporting or opposing the plan. Residents are indicating a desire for an alternative plan to be developed and reviewed as an option and choice. While 52 residents voted, over 40 other residents made comments that I would encourage you to read. Concerns went far beyond just height and density to include the use of eminent domain, TIF, eliminate residential and have the plan be 100% commercial to further build the Old Webster Business District. And don't rush into any decisions, but give residents the time to review the independent planner's report, the traffic studies, and any new plan options. I'll likely do this again in a few months. Peace, Dave. That was the last comment.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
And we will move on then to, I don't think anybody has a hand up, correct? I don't see a hand.
No, I don't believe any hands up. No. You're muted, Mayor.
Bill number 9137. Emerson, would you call for the third reading and its subsequent adoption?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of Bill number 9137 and its subsequent adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bill 9137, third and final reading. An ordinance amending Chapter 6 Code, Article 1, Section 60.010, definitions, to add a definition for school zones in Article 16, Section 60.960, and Schedule E, school stops and school zones, to establish school zones at Ambrose Early Childhood Center, Bristol Elementary, and Edgar Road Elementary, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on school days.
Any questions? This particular bill, Joanne and Neil, all it does is establish the zones and the right to put the signs up. It doesn't necessarily advocate for the signs. I got an email this afternoon from one of our folks who was really upset about the school flashing signs and the neighbors complaining, and said, I went and visited those last night and I see what the neighbors are talking about. So perhaps we can find some way of making those signs work when school is actually in session, like they do at Clark School. We have to figure this out technologically so that if you have no school and no activities going on, that those signs can be unflashed at 7 o'clock at night. So that's my sermon. Any other comments or questions? And let's call for the vote.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Arnold?
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson?
Yes.
Mayor Welch?
Yes. All right, then those school zones are in place. We have no appointments to boards and commissions, but we will go into an executive closed session. And so I will ask Ms. Arnold to call for an executive closed session. And Neil, what are those particular pieces?
This is going to be under attorney-client privileged communications, which is subsection 1.
Okay.
Thanks, Neil. Mayor, I would like to call for an executive closed session regarding number 1, attorney-client privileged communications, Missouri Statute 610.021, open paren 1, close paren.
Second.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson?
Yes.
Mayor Welch?
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold?
Yes.
All right, you have a few minutes if you need to grab a glass of water or something, and we will be back with a closed session. Thank you all, and thanks to all our 8 attendees for being with us this evening. Thank you.
We have a different address for that closed session, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I got it, Katie.
Okay.
Thanks.